Welcome to Tripodcast, episode 334. It's Monday, December 9th, and today Dick's talking about proposals. Specifically, he's wondering, do you include references in your proposal? And should you? Just so you know, Dick typically didn't include them. And he talks about why he thinks that worked better for him. Let's listen in.
In today's podcast, I want to talk a little bit about references, including them or not including them in your sales proposal as a BSC. You know, one of the most frequent discussions I have when I'm talking with contractors is they ask, how many references should I include? And the real question I always have is, should you even include them? And let me give you my point of view. I did not include them. Now, there are those of you that will take issue with that, and that's okay. I'm just going to give you my take on it, and you can accept it or reject it, but it's why I did not include references. As I presented my proposal, you know, when I would come back and present the proposal, again, without references, I would do name dropping of current clients, and this is the way I gave them the references. Name dropping of current clients that I had. For example, when discussing our customer call center, for instance, I would make a reference something like, you know, ABC Company has found this to be a tremendous benefit in our relationship. Or DEF Company was skeptical of our systematic training program until they attended one of our classes and found that we really do what we say we will do. I would make, you know, 5 or 6 references like this during the course of my presentation, and so that they kind of got, oh, okay, they're doing so-and-so, and they're doing so-and-so, and they're doing this company and that company. And so they kind of had the references without me actually giving them a reference page. But that gave me an opportunity to move closer to a close of the account. That's what, of the sale. That's what I was really after. Now, some of them would say, I need references. And I was never adverse to giving them the references. It wasn't like, I won't give them to you, because once you say that, you're saying, I don't have anybody that's worth talking to. But my response when they said, well, I understand what you're saying, but I got to have 3 references, or I got to have 4 references. And I never, like I said earlier, I never was adverse to doing that. My response, though, was always this. I will be happy to provide references. How many would you like? I'll be happy to bring them by at your convenience. How about 10 o'clock tomorrow morning? Or pick a time. The usual response that I got was, why don't you just fax them over or just email them to me? And when they would say something like that, I would reply, I'm sure you can understand the confidential nature of this information, so I really would like to personally bring it by to you. Now, why did I proceed in that manner? Why did I say I'd like to bring them by? And sometimes they would say, well, I won't be here, but I'll bring them by in an envelope anyway. By bringing them, now here's my main reason for not including them. For bringing them, I had another chance to close the sale. See, it gave me an opportunity to be back in front of them. If there were any additional questions that the prospect had, or did they need additional information from that? It was an additional day that the current contractor had to screw up. Quite often they just say, well, drop them off at the front desk, you know, and I'd put them in a nice envelope. And when I brought them back, I would say, is Mrs. Smith there in, or is Mr. Jones in? And many times, I would say more than half the time, they say, well, yeah, let me see. I'd say, I bring something, information that they wanted, could I just step into their office and say hi to them and provide them for. And again, more than half the time, I got that opportunity. And so when I was able to do that, it gave me an opportunity, you see, to ask again for the order, ask again when we could close. And that was my main reason for not including references, is I could name drop during the presentation, which many times just they didn't bother about references, but then if they did want the references, I took them back. It gave me an opportunity to be back in front of them. And by the way, I always put the references on a sheet that had the words confidential embedded in the stationery. This added another element of importance to the process. Incidentally, I use the same type of stationery for our agreements, for our maintenance service agreements, or as many of us affectionately call the contract, which I didn't like to use. I used maintenance service agreement. And then there's another reason some people have brought up to me, and it can be a valid reason why they don't want to put them in the references in there, is that it can provide a prospect list for your competitor, the incumbent contractor. And I know that's true. I know it can happen because I had customers who did it for me. I never asked a customer to do it, but I can't tell you how many times I would walk into my office or into my customer's office and say, hey, I'm not interested in changing, but I had so-and-so give me a competitive proposal so that I could give him you could get a reference list. And so I never turned it down, plus the fact I got to see what their proposal looked like and their pricing and everything else. But nevertheless, I never asked a customer to do that for me. But I was always surprised. I was always kind of amazed at how many people put references in there, and they'll list 10 of them or 20 of them. Why? Give 3 of them. But be sure to let the references know that you're using them, or ask for permission to use them. I kind of always had the attitude on references that if I was doing the job for my customer, it didn't make any difference if my competitor saw the references or not. But that you can take that either way you want to. But I do remember securing a very large account several years ago. This is kind of interesting. We were required in this presentation to provide 3 references with the proposal. My prospect told me later that I was awarded the contract, even though I was at a higher price than my competitor, which I thought was kind of interesting, because my competitor had listed 3 of his customers on his reference list. And here's the key. When they called the 3 references, all 3 of them were in the process of terminating that contractor. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? Putting 3 references in your proposal of customers who are getting ready to get rid of you? I think that contractor did not have was out of touch, wasn't he, with what was going on. By the way, he's no longer in business. But I've repeated that story several times, and I still scratch my head. Why would you do that? But maybe he didn't know. Maybe that's obviously he didn't know, or he wouldn't have done it. I don't think he was that dumb. So let me add one more thing. If the customer is insistent, or the prospect is insistent on providing references with your proposal, let me suggest you include maybe 3, no more than 4. I've seen proposals, like I said earlier, where contractors will list 20, 10, or 15 of them. Why? Because you do run the risk. If you got 10 references in there, you run the risk that one of those may be mad at you that day. Maybe they're a long-time customer, but you just did something to screw up the night before, and they call that day. So I always was real careful not to recommend more than 3, maybe 4 if I had to, but I always tried 3. So anyway, that's my take on references. I hope that it's been helpful to you, but again, I'm not saying there's a right way or there's a wrong way. I'm just telling you that was my way. And Frank Sinatra had a great song out years ago, I Did It My Way, and that's kind of what I did with my proposals. Thanks for watching us today.
You've been listening to a Tripodcast, short video and audio presentation about important topics in our industry. If you're a current subscriber to the Tripodcast, thank you. We appreciate it. If you're not yet a subscriber, please check it out. It's free and it's easy. Come to www.tripodcast.com, enter your email address on the right-hand column, and click subscribe. We'll send you out a new Tripodcast every Monday morning.